These women are completely out of touch with reality. And you're right, ABC should...
There was chaos on The View when Karoline Leavitt made a shocking statement, causing the hosts to quickly try to defend themselves.
Democrats in the media are now unloading all their nasty attacks on rising Trump White House star and new press secretary, Karoline Leavitt. Watch this.
Today, we're breaking down what happened, why Karoline Leavitt's big reveal has everyone talking, and what it might mean for the show's future. If you're curious about what caused all the drama, you're in the right spot. Things are getting intense because of Karoline Leavitt's bold move in the political world.
These women are completely out of touch with reality. And you're right, ABC should...
It's well known that The View loves to cause a stir, but this time they got in over their heads when Karoline Leavitt stepped into the spotlight as Trump's press secretary. Democrats quickly went on the attack.
Probably been put in there because according to Donald Trump, she's a 10. You know that's what it is.
Their attack on Karoline Leavitt didn't just fail, it completely backfired. What started as petty jealousy has now ruined their reputations. Thanks to Karoline's bold approach, the hosts of The View are left trying to fix the mess they made. The fallout is huge. Take Joy Behar, for example. She calls herself a feminist who supports women, yet she dismissed Karoline's achievements by focusing on her looks. The hypocrisy is obvious. How can someone claim to fight for women's rights and then put down a successful young woman? Karoline, never one to back down, quickly called out these so-called woke figures.
Women are completely out of touch with reality. And you're right, ABC should...
But hold on. If Karoline's a 10, where does that leave Joy? Well, Greg Gutfeld from Fox News didn't hold back, throwing some serious shade with a joke that had everyone talking. Let's just say, the internet hasn't stopped laughing since.
Behar calls her a 10. I mean, how dare she objectify a woman with a sexist rating system, but it's such a typical thing from a 1 point.
Karoline didn't stop at just defending herself. She also had strong words for the Democratic propaganda machine. She made it clear that those who ride the Trump wave will be forgotten once he's done with them. Without Trump's support or the media attention, their relevance is running out fast.
Democrats can either get on board or they can prepare to lose another election just like they did on November 5th.
You could feel the impact of Karoline's words in the stunned silence on The View. It's clear to anyone watching that the hosts are jealous of a younger, sharper, and more deserving person outshining them. After Joy's harsh comments, Whoopi Goldberg jumped in, trying to change the story with a narrative that left Americans shocked. She took on a mother-hen role, scolding Karoline for what she called a lack of tolerance for weakness.
She said something yesterday that really pissed me off. And that was, she said, there will be no wokeness here.
Oh, yeah.
Let me explain something to you. Because without that wokeness, you might not have that job.
Let's be honest, Whoopi wasn't offering any wisdom. She was just trying to clean up the mess. But Karoline wasn't having it, and in a now viral clip, she called out Whoopi's attempt to blur the lines between civil rights and wokeness. Whoopi tried to act like they were the same thing, but Karoline wasn't fooled. She pointed out Whoopi's flawed logic with brutal honesty, making it clear that Whoopi either didn't understand the difference or was intentionally misleading her audience. Based on Whoopi's reaction, it's clear she...
Women were not invited to that table. Women were not invited to many tables in this nation. The reason we fought and busted our behinds to make sure that you didn't have to worry about this. And now to hear you talk about it and to hear anybody talk about the wokeness was put in place for a reason.
If Whoopi is such a strong supporter of women's rights, why didn't she call out Joy Behar for reducing Karoline's success to her looks? Maybe it's because Whoopi's so-called moral compass only points left, and she's not holding her co-host accountable. Instead, Whoopi attacked Karoline after the 27-year-old had the nerve to use her first White House press conference to call out the legacy media for losing the trust of everyday Americans. Whoopi conveniently played the race card, trying to make it about identity politics rather than addressing the real issue. It was a classic deflection.
Because black people couldn't get into colleges. because women could not get into the colleges they wanted to go to. This is all.
But Karoline wasn't finished yet. She took aim at The View for spreading baseless accusations, like when they tried to blame Elon Musk for an assassination attempt. She pointed out the irony of the hosts constantly demanding accountability while they're the ones recklessly pushing fake news.
Ironic that Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar and the rest of the ladies on The View spend their time calling Republicans the conspiracy theorists, but they have been wrong about everything they have said over the last couple of years.
She reminded them that just a few years ago, the media had a completely different stance. Now, desperate to control the narrative, they twist any story to fit their agenda. Karoline wasn't about to let them get away with it.
They likened President Trump to Hitler. They have mocked him. They have shamed him. They have lied about him consistently on their show. And it was a joy to watch them on November the 6th when they realized that tens of millions of Americans do not listen to the lies.
For years, The View and other mainstream media outlets have pushed whatever narrative worked for them, silenced opposing views, and shaped public opinion without any accountability. But thanks to Karoline's bold stance, the era of unchecked propaganda is finally coming to a close.
She's young, but she's wise beyond her years, and she has access to the president, which is something someone didn't have.
With her call for accountability, Karoline is forcing these outlets to answer for their reporting. And let's face it, this is their worst nightmare. Without the ability to spin the truth, their entire playbook is falling apart. Karoline just flipped the script on legacy media, and now The View is losing it. She announced a game-changing shakeup in the White House press pool, introducing a new media section to hold traditional outlets accountable for their years of biased reporting and misinformation about President Trump. Karoline made it clear, "We will call you out when we feel your reporting is wrong, or there is misinformation about this White House." For decades, the Associated Press and the White House Correspondents Association controlled the room, dictating who got to ask questions and which narratives were pushed. But not anymore. Karoline made it crystal clear that legacy media won't run the show unchecked. Instead, 2 front-row seats, once reserved for White House staff, will now go to new media voices that actually challenge the establishment. And if that wasn't enough to send The View into a meltdown, Karoline also restored press passes for 440 journalists who were wrongfully revoked under the Biden administration.
The president doesn't surround himself by anybody smart. And Joy Behar and those guys, of course this was going to happen. This is why conservative women just have to move on, do their thing, and not worry about the criticism from folks like at The View.
And we are expecting the media to be...
While many praised the push for transparency, The View panel had a very different reaction. Sonny Hostin scoffed at the idea of new media reporters being qualified to attend briefings, acting as if only legacy media elites deserved a seat at the table. Whoopi then jumped in with her usual condescending attitude, warning that under the new administration, people would just spout stuff. The irony was impossible to miss. For years, mainstream media, including The View, has done exactly that, twisting narratives to fit their own agenda. But now that Karoline is holding them accountable, suddenly Whoopi wants to talk about standards.
Conflating 2 ideas, this word wokeness didn't look like she really understood what it meant, or certainly the way Karoline Leavitt meant it when she made that statement, and she was conflating it with civil rights and how, women didn't have the right to vote or own property and all of that. That has nothing to do with wokeness, which is, of course, about putting people in there because of their immutable characteristics rather than the merit that they bring.
At the end of the day, this isn't about journalism or ethics. It's about attention. The hosts of The View thrive on being in the spotlight, telling the public what they should think. The real reason they're panicking is that millions of Americans are now turning to alternative media sources. For the first time in years, they're losing control of the narrative, and they absolutely hate it. Karoline Leavitt, the youngest press secretary in U.S. history, called out traditional media for losing trust and pointed out that millions of Americans are now seeking news from other outlets. She made it clear, "We will call you out when we feel your reporting is wrong or there is misinformation about this White House. Now, The View is feeling the heat. For years, they've spread misinformation and smears without real pushback, but those days are over. Karoline Leavitt, the history-making press secretary, just put the entire legacy media on notice. Let's not forget, Karoline replaced Karine Jean-Pierre, who constantly reminded everyone of her identity. But as Karoline has proven, leadership isn't about ticking diversity boxes. It's about holding power accountable and speaking for the American people. After failing to bring Karoline down with cheap shots, The View tried to trap her with a classic gotcha question about illegal immigration. They thought they had her cornered. Spoiler alert, they didn't.
This administration goes. I know the last administration didn't see it that way, so it's a big culture shift in our nation to view someone who breaks our immigration laws as a criminal, but that's exactly what they...
Karoline flipped the script, reminding them that Trump's America prioritizes law-abiding citizens over those who break the law. Just like that, their entire argument fell apart. But instead of admitting defeat, The View doubled down, pushing their tired left-wing narrative in a desperate attempt to trap Karoline.
Loved it. You know why? Because I work for a president who is getting things done, who is delivering on the promises he made to the American people.
They love to pretend they care about justice, but let's be real. This wasn't about defending immigrants. It was about trying to trip up a woman who's too smart to fall for their games. Karoline is clearly enjoying every moment of it, watching them scramble while she stands firm.
So much good news, so much winning out of the Trump White House right now that the mainstream legacy media can't keep up with it. And the Democrats are in complete disarray because they have become a globalist party who like to spend taxpayer dollars on useless priorities just to cater to the left.
Karoline isn't just taking on The View, she's challenging the entire legacy media machine. She's exposing their tactics for everyone to see, and as they scramble to keep up, they're only proving her point. Karoline dropped the ultimate truth bomb. The View has been so focused on catering to the left that they've completely lost their way.